Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy. Without any further interruptions, enjoy the What If. Chapter 7. Bell Test Blues. An orange spiral mask and a Sharingan eye, the face of my enemy. Naruto brooded over this information as he walked towards Training Ground 3. Kyuubi had told him everything, how she had been controlled with a Sharingan to attack the village, even the last moments of his parents. He didn't blame Kyuubi. Hell, he'd be pretty pissed too if he had been trapped against his will inside someone or another for close to 60+ years, with a very likely chance of getting sealed back inside someone else by those same people. And from what he understood, his mom had whipped Kyuubi hard. The fact Kyuubi called it rough bondage didn't help either. He'd never look at chains the same way again. Disturbing thoughts aside, he felt good today. Today he could finally cut loose against someone, and a Jonin someone at that. Lucky. The only problem to his plans were the added baggage of Broody and the Beast. The test was teamwork, and their teamwork, for lack of a better term, was shit. The Uchiha prodigy was a pompous ass and tried to do everything himself. Sakura, on the other hand, was the exact opposite of Sasuke. She was fiery, yes, but she tended to only be fiery towards Sasuke, or when she compared her fist density to the hardness of his head. Brain injury aside, when Sasuke wasn't around, she could be introverted and quiet, hell, maybe even willing to work together, but once pompous ass met ass kisser, it would take a miracle to get them to work correctly together. Oh well, he sighed dejectedly, might as well at least try to work with them, maybe the impossible will happen. With that thought, he walked onto the worn field of Training Ground 3. He noticed immediately that Sakura and Sasuke were already there. Sasuke was sitting silently under the shade of a tree while Sakura was leaning against one of the 3 stumps in the middle of the training ground. Sakura stared at Naruto with a frown planted firmly on her face. You're late, Naruto. Yeah, and so is Sensei. Did either of you eat anything? He watched as both slowly nodded apprehensively. After all, if they were in trouble, now was the time for Kakashi to punish them for it. After a good 30 minutes of waiting, the 3 knew that Kakashi wasn't testing their adherence to the rules and was genuinely late, again. Naruto, who expected Kakashi's tardiness after he told Anko about who his new sensei was. It wasn't like she had to laugh so hard, but it did tip him off that the guy was a joke. The little quip Anko made about being late for his own funeral didn't reassure him either. After another hour, Naruto was starting to twitch. Well, I'm tired of waiting for him. He turned to his 2 would-be teammates questioningly. Would either of you like to train while we wait? Neither moved from their positions. Both were clearly on edge. Naruto shrugged. Fine, more for me. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Instantly 5 Naruto clones appeared in front of him. All right guys, you know the drill. He tossed a scroll to the clones and they ran off into the woods to train. Yo Dobi, what the hell kind of clone was that? I saw you use them during the graduation exam, but what are they? They're Kage Bunshin Sasuke, shadow clones. Hella useful, but the drain they put on your chakra reserves is massive. If I were to estimate, you could probably only make 10 or so before you fell to the ground dead. Then how did you make 5 of them? He shrugged. Simple. I have more chakra than you do. A lot more actually, most likely more than our Jonin sensei. In fact, my Fox bloodline increases the amount of chakra I have by massive amounts, more than a Kage's if what people tell me is correct. Only downside to this bloodline is my chakra control is complete shit. Those clones right there, I put enough chakra into them to make 10 clones. Before I got my control up, it would have been 50 or more. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. So your bloodline doesn't really have any permanent weaknesses, does it? Naruto stuck a finger to his chin in thought. He pulled his cap off, exposing the ears to the air. Well, to be honest, I don't think I do. Besides really loud noises, these ears are fairly decent for hearing over large distances. He yanked the tail from his pants. For the tail, I don't know. It really doesn't do anything more than increase my balance. I could probably find a use for it for something. Have you ever tried holding something with it? Sakura questioned. No. Why? She walked over beside him and pulled out a kunai. Here, try and hold this. Naruto turned to look at the blade in her hand and mentally willed his tail to reach out for it. After a few failed attempts, he sighed in frustration. Nothing, it just doesn't have the control necessary. Sasuke stared at the half-assed attempts by Naruto's appendage. Why don't you try running chakra through it, Dobi? The two ninja turned to stare at him. He pointed at the tail in thought. I use wires all the time and running chakra through them makes the things easier to control. I imagine that tail would work the same way. Naruto looked back down in thought at his tail. He tested a bit of chakra going to the tip of the tail. Instantly the fur stood up on end and his entire body jolted, sending waves of electricity up his spine. Holy shit. He stopped the flow of chakra and stared. The fuck was that? What happened? Sakura knelt down to where the tail was eye level. She was giving it that fangirl squee look, but there was genuine concern in her eyes, so Naruto wasn't gonna run for the hills just yet. I don't know, it just started shocking me. Try putting less chakra into it then. Maybe you just forced too much in and it hurt you. Naruto nodded to the pinket and slowly forced a smaller amount of chakra in. It still tingled but not nearly as bad. Once it reached the tip, the oddest thing happened. The tail went completely slack. Naruto raised an eyebrow. The hell? What happened? The pinket asked. He scratched his head. I have no clue. This thing reacts to chakra in a weird way. I think I need to train with this thing for a while. Maybe I can use it. With a hand sign, a dozen clones were in a line in front of him. Alright, go test this thing out. He grabbed his tail and shook it at the clones. I want results by the end of the day. Oui mon Capitan. They turned and ran off into the woods. Sakura's sweat dropped. What is wrong with your clones? Naruto sighed comically. Some things are better left unsaid. Reet. The three genin sat quietly for another 30 minutes until a cheerful voice filled the clearing. Yo. Kakashi hailed them. He glanced over at Naruto and nearly fell over. He still had his tail and ears out for all to see, and this was a first for Kakashi seeing them. Interesting. I knew he had them, but it's just odd seeing things like that poking out of people. This may take some time to get used to. You're late. Sakura growled out. Surprisingly, Naruto kept quiet. Well, Kakashi began. I got lost on the road of life. Liar. The pinket fumed. Actually, Naruto interrupted. I believe him. Kakashi eye smiled at that. After all, it's not every day someone gets laid. The eye smile widened in shock. Wah. The jonin choked out. Naruto tossed Kakashi a book. Here, for the next time you get lost on the road of life. Kakashi knew what it was the moment it left the blonde's hand. The orange cover gave it away almost instantly, but what shocked Kakashi the most was that he had never seen this cover before, which could only mean one thing. It was a new Ika Ika volume. Kakashi slowly opened the cover, and there in all its glory was the signature of the author, and in bold letters, First Edition. He looked at the boy in awe. How? He said reverently. I have my ways. He grinned impishly. Thank you, Anko, that made a hell of a first impression. Kakashi stood frozen for a moment before bending forward quickly in a deep bow, much to the shock of the other two genin there. You have my deepest gratitude, Uzumaki-san. Yeah, create a shadow clone to go enshrine your book back home. You got a team to pass. He looked up at the blonde. So the brat knows it's a test. Interesting. Slowly he nodded once, a hand sign and a puff of smoke later his clone and the book vanished in a shunshin. A second later Kakashi's poker face was back while his body regained its comfortable slouch. Okay then. The one-eyed jonin pulled out a clock and placed it on one of the stumps. This here is a timer set to go off at noon. 2 bells dangled from his fingers. You have until that time to take these bells from me. Those who don't, get sent back to the academy. The Sasuke and Sakura were shocked. Naruto not so much. Why would they get sent back to the academy if this was survival exercises? Unless. But sensei, there's only 2 bells. Sakura piped in. Correct, Sakura. That means even if you do get the bells from me, one of you will be going back regardless. Out of the entire graduating class, only 9 of you will be advancing to become full-fledged genin. This test has a 66% chance of failure and is used to root out the hopeless cases, so you better get the bells by lunch, or else. Also, for a little added motivation, if you don't get the bells by lunch, you won't get any lunch. Sakura glared at Kakashi in thought. So that's why he said not to eat. The bastard, and if he lied about that to get us we can fight amongst ourselves then. She glanced at Sasuke, who was looking at her as well. They both thought Naruto was right. This is a test of teamwork. They both glanced at Naruto, who was watching the both of them intently. Ever so slightly they nodded. A large grin crossed Naruto's face. Hey, we might actually do this now. He turned back to Kakashi with that grin still plastered on his face. Kakashi raised his only visible eyebrow. What are you up to? Sakura. Sasuke, you get it now, right? They both nodded. Good. Alright, One Eye, let's get this over with. I got places to go, women to meet, important stuff. He threw that impish grin from earlier at the cycloptic Jonin. Kakashi's sweat dropped. He's getting 1,000 years of death. For that one. He coughed to cover his loss of composure. Alright then, be prepared to come at me with intent to kill, or you'll never get the bells. Begin. In a burst of speed the three genin disappeared into the woods. Across town outside a jewelry shop a young Hyuga heiress stood pouting, staring at a display case of engagement rings in the widow dreamily. She had passed by the shop, thinking of a certain blonde-haired boy when she noticed the rings. After a few more moments she sighed in despair, as if Naruto-kun would ask me to marry him. What would he want with a plain girl like me? She shook those thoughts from her head. She'd never given up on him in the 4 years she's tried to be close to him, watching him grow into the person he is now. There was no way in hell she was just gonna let go of her feelings for him. She turned from the shop and marched off to one of her favorite spots in the village. Simply because it was one of Naruto's favorite spots. The top of the Hokage monument. What the fuck is with these kids? Kakashi screamed in his mind as he dodged another barrage of kunai launched by a tripwire trap that had been set by the blonde maverick himself. In just a few minutes Naruto had booby-trapped a large portion of the forest that he was now running for his life in. Not to mention every so often Sasuke and Sakura would launch sneak attacks from behind him. Only years of experience kept him from getting seriously injured, or worse. 1 minute I'm chasing after Naruto, the next I am tripping over myself in a forest of pointy doom. How the kid had gotten a hold of so many kunai and explosive tags he'll never know. Backing up he felt a tug on his foot and looked down quickly to notice another tripwire against his heel. Shit. A set of explosions and kunai assaulted him from every direction, which he narrowly dodged. I know I said to come at me with intent to kill, but this is ridiculous. Kakashi stopped for a moment to focus on the area around him and realized something odd. There was not a single sound around him. He leaned against a tree for a moment to get his bearings, only for his eyes to go wide as ninja wire sprung up and wrapped around the tree, encircling him with near invisible wire. A sharp tug and the wires snapped taut, pinning him. Not a half moment after that, 2 shuriken flew through the air and struck his palms. Gah! Pain shot through his arms as the bladed stars tore into his hands to prevent any use of jutsu. A shadow appeared beside the one-eyed Jonin's head before darkness took him. -1 hour later. You think we overdid it? A girl's voice awakened the Jonin. Who cares? The Dobi's plan was awesome. A gruff male voice who he pinpointed as Sasuke answered. Hey, I never knew you cared, Sasuke. Nice work on the wires, by the way, and the same with the shuriken, Sakura, said the current bane of the Jonin's existence. Trap master bastard. Ah hell, I'm tied up. He mentally groaned, realizing he was tied to one of the training stumps of Training Ground 3. The irony of that wasn't lost on the cycloptic Jonin. I don't. You just had a good plan, retorted the Uchiha to the blonde's taunting. And thanks. No shit. The silver-haired Jonin groaned from the stump, a large black and blue welt on the visible side of his face right below his eye. Oh sensei, you're awake. Sakura giggled happily. What the hell hit me? The Jonin asked. That would be the Uzumaki special, said Uzumaki, held up his left fist in front of his face and his eyes gleamed menacingly. Kakashi's sweat dropped, taken down by a punch. I'm never going to hear the end of this once this makes the rounds at the Jonin lounge. Should have used the Sharingan from the beginning, damn it. By the way, sensei. Naruto held up both bells in his hand. Mission complete. He handed one to Sasuke and one to Sakura and grinned proudly. So do we pass or what? Kakashi hung his head in despair. He had no choice. Not only did they use more teamwork than he'd ever seen a genin team use, they had beaten him as well. Hell, they worked together like a well-oiled Chunin team. How that happened he'd never know, but in a way he was proud to have them as his team if this was just a taste of what they could do now. Yeah, you pass. I guess you figured out the meaning behind this test, right? They nodded. He sighed again. By the way, how in the hell did you lay all those traps that quickly? Naruto. And how did you get your teammates to work so well with you? Naruto scratches his head in embarrassment. Hey, as for the first one, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The clearing was filled yet again with clones of Naruto, but this time there was over 50 of them. I can make dozens of shadow clones like it's nothing. These guys were setting up traps while you were stumbling through the first ones I set. Kakashi's face turned sour. He makes it sound like I'm a complete novice. His face straightened slightly, and the teamwork. Simple. For Sakura I said I'd help her get the attention of Sasuke by helping her get stronger and keeping the other fangirls off of him. For Sasuke I said I'd help him get stronger, as well as keeping a majority of his fangirls away. So you bribed them, basically. Kakashi's sweat dropped again. Why am I not surprised? The ropes behind him snapped and he stood up, much to the surprise of the genin. Okay then, since you passed, meet me here tomorrow for mission assignments and team training, Naruto. Naruto jumped at Kakashi's raised voice. Yeah. Since you seem so adamant about helping your teammates get stronger, you'll be helping train them as well. Kakashi's eyes smiled. He's getting back at me, isn't he? The blonde's eyebrow twitched slightly in annoyance. Till tomorrow then. I have a make-out date with an ice pack. A swirl of leaves signified his departure as the rest of Team 7 left the training grounds, 2 of them heading home. The other heading to his most favorite spot in the village, the Hokage Monument. Hinata Hyuga sat silently watching the sun set in the west from the top of the Hokage Monument, the wind blowing gently through the trees, the slow shaking of the branches, creating a soothing soundtrack to the view. Oh Naruto, she sighed, staring at the pale orange sunset in despair. Will I ever be able to catch your heart? Will you ever notice me? The Hyuga heiress sighed again and looked longingly over the village. Just one moment is all I need to tell you, but I just can't say it. Tears filled her pale eyes as a lump caught in her throat. Naruto. Hinata. The Hyuga's eyes went wide. She turned sharply to see the embodiment of her love standing not 20 feet away. Naruto-kun. What are why you doing here? The pale-eyed girl's heart was about to tear a hole out of her chest. Here he was, the boy she had admired for years, the person who never gave up no matter how much hatred was thrown his way, the one who gave her courage and hope that she herself could overcome any obstacle, just standing there staring at her. It was almost too much for the girl. Naruto watched Hinata intently. He could hear the girl's heart beat faster and her breathing quickened. It was like she feared him, but the way she blushed and stuttered contradicted that. He had spent the past 4 years trying to understand what caused her to act this way around him, and so far he had no clue what the hell her problem was. Looking at her now, he felt this might be the only chance to figure it out. He had heard the last bit of what she was saying. She needed to tell him something, but what it was she felt she couldn't say. Now was the time to get her to say it. Hinata. He said again. This time it wasn't a question. He walked closer to her and noticed that the girl broke out into a cold sweat as he approached. He's walking towards me. What does he want? The girl's thoughts were spinning around at 1,000 miles an hour. So confused was she that she didn't even notice that he was standing right in front of her, his cerulean eyes gazing hard into her pale lavender ones. Her eyes widened. Eep. She squeaked out, trying to back away from him, but she only felt the edge of the monument at her back. Hinata, do you have something to say to me? The tone of his voice offered no argument. I heard you from before. You said you wanted to tell me something. What is it? His eyes never left hers while hers widened in shock. He heard me. At first she was happy that he had heard her words, but then her stomach fell. He clearly hadn't heard the first part, so he wouldn't know what she wanted to tell him. She'd have to do it now, or never. Naruto. She grit her teeth, and tried to force the words from her mouth, but nothing came. Damn it. Just 3 words, 3 damn words, say it, say it. She jerked. When she felt a pair of hands on her shoulders. Hinata, calm down and just tell me. He was close, too close, and that was it. The shy girl fainted under his touch, falling to the ground, only, there wasn't any ground below her. Being on the edge of a cliff does that to you. Hinata, he yelled and leapt after her. Shit, she's falling too fast, I won't be able to catch her and stop our fall. Wait, that's it. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A dozen Naruto latched onto each other and grabbed the edge of the monument. The last one had a hold of Naruto's legs as he reached out for Hinata. A few more inches and he had his hands around her. Now, he screamed, latching onto what he could of the girl. Right, boss. The clones jerked them to the side, swinging them back towards the top of the mountain. They flew through the air, flying towards the treeline. Naruto's eyes widened. When he saw where they were landing, he turned and cradled her body in his, putting himself between the hard ground and her. With a loud smack he struck the stone of the monument before bouncing into the soft grass of the treeline. Hinata held tightly to his chest. It took a few moments for the dust to settle, but after it did, a slight groan echoed out. You, Hinata. He shook the girl lightly, trying to wake her. Hinata, are you all right? Blood was coming from his arms and back. He could feel the burning in his limbs telling him he was hurt, but he could only care about the pale-eyed Hyuga heiress at the moment. Hinata. Please answer me. The girl groaned weakly in his arms. Hinata. His movements were frantic as he gently brushed her hair out of her eyes. Slowly those lavender orbs did open. They were half-lidded and dreamy looking. Naruto-kun, she groaned out. The tone froze Naruto. It wasn't in a friendly tone. It was something deeper, something more along the lines of lust and desire. Needless to say, it freaked him out. Hinata, are you all right? He asked timidly. Seemingly ignoring him, she drew closer, eyes still hazy. Naruto-kun, she stressed, bringing her face closer and closer to his, making his eyes go wide. Wait, His protests were cut off when her lips met his. Slowly, oh so very slowly, her tongue slid gently along his lips. Oh Kami, where did she learn to kiss like that? His eyes were wide with shock. Wait, why is she kissing me like that? His thoughts were broke off with the kiss as Hinata pulled back, still in her own little world. Hinata's eyes closed contentedly. This is the best dream ever. I just wish this could be real life, she thought quietly as she held what she thought was her imaginary crush. My Naruto-kun, I love you so much, Naruto-kun. She laid her head on his chest. Naruto's eyes widened even more. She loves me. Since when? He wondered, as he hesitantly wrapped his arms around her. Hinata was content. Even if this was a dream, she still wanted to hold Naruto. She listened to her Naruto-kun's heartbeat, feeling his warmth. Feeling heartbeat. Suddenly her eyes weren't so hazy and her movements not so dreamy. She looked up into Naruto's face in shock. Naruto. She whimpered. Why yeah, TT, this isn't a dream, is it? The pleading look in her eyes nearly broke his heart. It seemed like her whole world was crashing down around her. No, Hinata, it isn't. Her eyes widened as her face fell. Her body slowly started shaking with barely controlled sobs. He was surprised at her sudden tears. He could only watch as she cried in his arms. After what seemed like forever, he couldn't take it anymore. Hinata, he called gently while lightly shaking her, which caused her to look him in the eyes. Slowly he reached out and cupped her face with his hands, and brought her face closer to his to return the kiss she gave him. Her eyes, like his before, widened in shock. He's kissing me back. Does that mean he likes me? The girl could only go with the flow as their lips met in another tender embrace. Slowly as before the kiss broke, but this time with a smiling Naruto and a stunned Hyuga, and Naruto-kun. There we go, no more tears, he threw her his trademark grin. A couple minutes of awkward silence filled the air as the two held eye contact with deep blue orbs staring into pale lavender ones. The two sat for a few seconds longer before Naruto broke the silence. Hinata, you care for me, don't you? Like really care for me? It was a simple question, but the young girl could tell that it was something much deeper than just the question. Like what she answered would be extremely important. Why yes, I do Naruto-kun. I've been watching you since the D-Day we met, you always make me feel better when I'm around you. The girl's stuttering was all too cute for the blonde boy. He chuckled lightly, before his face grew solemn. Hinata, I have to tell you something you may not like. The girl's ears perked up at the tone of his voice. What could be so important that he'd sound so reserved? Like that, he sighed once. You remember what I told the class about how I have a bloodline? She nodded. Well, what I didn't tell any of you was I'm also the last member of 2 clans. My mother and father were both the last of their clans as well. The girl was slightly surprised that her Naruto-kun was that important, but she nodded again to show she understood. Well, the night I gained my bloodline, I was taken before the council to discuss my fate. Many of the council, especially the civilian council, hated me. The reason they hate me, Hinata. You know the story of how the Yondaime defeated the Kyuubi, right? He was sweating a bit and apprehension filled his body. This was going to be difficult to say. She nodded, getting a sinking feeling in her stomach. The Yondaime killed the Kyuubi on October 10th, the night of the attack. Only half right, Hinata. Yes, the Yondaime fought and defeated Kyuubi, but no, he did not kill it. Kyuubi is a mass of chakra given form and consciousness. You can't kill that. So he did the only thing he could do to save the village. He sealed that power away. Do you know where he sealed it, Hinata? As the girl looked him in the eyes, she saw sadness within those pure blue eyes, taking what luster was there and dulling it with pain. She shook her head, but by the way Naruto was acting and how the village treated him, she could guess well enough. I hold the Kyuubi within me, Hinata. The story I told about my bloodline was for the most part a lie. The girl's eyes widened, but she kept quiet as Naruto continued. You don't have to worry about me becoming a Kyuubi reborn though. The seal on my stomach. He raised his shirt and channeled a bit of chakra to show her the seal. Keeps the Kyuubi locked up tight, but that doesn't stop people from hating me, Hinata. He chuckled bitterly. Hell, they were going to put this bluntly, whore me off to those willing. When I reached an age that I was sexually active, they would use me as breeding stock. Hinata's mouth hung open slightly. He looked at her and chuckled again. Yeah, I know, horrible. Isn't it? Well, thankfully Hokage Gigi thought ahead of time to counter the council's plans, knowing that my blood was now worth more than gold to them. He tried to find the right words but couldn't, so he decided to tell her about Anko. A woman by the name of Anko Mitarashi found me that night when my bloodline activated. She was like me, hated by the villagers. She was actually going to adopt me that night, but Gigi said that he had already tried that and failed, so he came up with a way for both of us to be together. Hinata's face fell at this. She could tell where this was going. I see, you understand. He sighed. Yeah, to keep me away from the council and to allow Anko to care for me, he married us. Anko Mitarashi is actually Anko Uzumaki. We've been married 5 years now. A single tear fell down Hinata's cheek. To have her Prince Charming return her affections only to lose him a moment later hurt badly. But he sighed, causing the girl to perk up slightly. There was one other thing that was talked about, the Clan Restoration Act. Under the CRA's laws, I can legally have more than one wife, and that's where this discussion is going. I know it seems shallow of me, but Hinata, if you truly do love me like you say you do and it's not some fangirlish phase, then I'm offering the chance to you. She meant to say something, but he held a hand up to stop her. You don't have to answer me now. If you want, we can date or something to see where this goes. I've already talked this over with Anko and she's entirely cool with me dating multiple women. How she's cool with it I honestly don't know, but yeah. He snorted a bit in amusement. Hinata looked lost as she thought over what he had said. On the one hand, she was glad that she still had a chance with Naruto, but on the other there was just something odd about being one of someone's wives. It just seemed to take the magic out of being married. But again, on the other hand, she was a rather pragmatic girl and she was also a ninja with a strict set of morals to follow. Being a whiny fangirl lusting after the perfect man and perfect wedding wasn't one of those morals, although it just so happened that the perfect man for her just so happened to be eligible and married. Would that even be the right word for his circumstances? Maybe Multi-eligible would be a better description. She rubbed her hands together thoughtfully. I suppose it all comes down to one thing really, can I share? She looked her crush in the eyes, his clear blue eyes reflecting everything back to her. They were full of life, full of love regardless of who he spent time with. He smiled again, this time one of his genuine smiles, not as big but just as infectious. Her heart melted in her chest as she sat there quietly deciding one of the greatest choices in her young life. And Naruto-kun, how do you feel about all of this? I know what I feel, but what do you feel? She bit her lip nervously. Naruto stared off into the distance for a moment before speaking. Hinata, I had to choose to marry Anko. A child had to decide his future like that. Even after all this time I still feel that dull ache of loneliness. I know I can spend time with Anko and it goes away some but it's still there. He sighed, I think it's because I didn't have anyone that cared for me. In my childhood. He stared off into the distance. Until I met Anko I was completely alone except for Gigi and the Ichirakus, and even then they were never as close as they could be. Sure, I knew them and respect them greatly, but they never gave me any love. Sure, there was affection and a lot of caring, but never anything as close as a mother or father's love, or even a lover's love really. So to answer your question, honestly, I don't know. Anko told me that I have enough room in my heart for more than one person and I'd like to think that she's right, but again, I don't know. Hinata seemed disheartened by that answer. Then why give me this chance at all? He chuckled lightly. Well, I can't really say, if you want a reason. He scratched his chin thoughtfully. I guess you can say I just felt like it. Her face twisted in confusion. Jay just felt like it. Hey, yeah Hinata, I don't really know anything about being a husband or father, if that ever comes around. But I do know how to be a friend to someone, if you want to go deeper then we can start out as friends and go from there. That's why I said we should date before we do anything drastic. She stared at her crush for a good long while. It was a difficult decision, one that she had to weigh against everything she knew, but answer she did. I'll do it. And Nani. Naruto's face vaulted from his sitting posture. How that's possible, I don't know. He turned back quickly to Hinata to see a warm smile on her face. You'll do what? Date me or marry me? Both. Her smile took up her entire face. Naruto just sweat dropped at the answer. Okay, did not see that one coming. She must really like me. Taking a few moments to compose himself he asked. How about we make today a date then? Those were the magic words. Instantly Hinata's eyes lit up and her entire face flushed red. Oh yeah, she really likes me. A shiver went up his spine as Hinata grabbed hold of him. Let's go Naruto-kun. There wasn't a single stutter in that sentence and she sounded like the happiest person alive at the moment. Another chill went up his spine as she pulled him back down to the village. In a galaxy far far away on a peaceful little planet we find a small green creature meditating in silence. Slowly it opened its eyes and looked towards the stars in the night sky. A disturbance in the force, I sense. A great evil, awoken it has, My problem, it is not. It closed its eyes and resumed its meditation. Naruto-kun, Hinata sang. Kami help me, he cried, as a pair of hands grabbed him, dragging him off to another place on their date. Chapter 8. D-Day. So she's in on this whole multiple wives thing then. Anko eyed the sheepish-looking Naruto and the blushing Hinata behind him. Yeah, turns out she kinda has a huge crush on me. Naruto chuckled. Just a crush. Anko raised her eyebrow. Naruto scratched the back of his head nervously. The make-out for almost an hour with tongue kind of crush. Said eyebrow disappeared into her hairline. Then. Anko stared at the blushing girl, who upon closer inspection was rubbing her legs together suggestively, which made Anko's other eyebrow disappear. She turned to look at Naruto in surprise. Crush nothing, this girl is about ready to jump his bones, it's only me and her modesty keeping her from following through. Damn Gaki, you bagged a minx. Anko licked her lips a little and grinned. Naruto paled when she did that. That could only mean one thing. I'm sorry Hinata-chan. Really sorry. Alright then, Hinata, come with me, She grabbed the girl and all but dragged her into an adjacent room to explain a few things to the girl. The sounds of said explanation brought a thin trail of blood from the blonde's nose, before everything went black for him. Meanwhile in the other room Anko was grinning madly. Well, there he went. Anko cackled mentally, knowing the boy had passed out from the noises she was getting the Hyuga girl to make. After she heard him hit the floor she stopped her playtime to give the Hyuga girl a firm glare. "Alright girlie, listen up," she snapped, making the partially violated heiress stiffen a bit. "Why yes Anko-san," the girl replied nervously, still reeling from the sensations the snake mistress avenue her. "I've heard the Gaki's reasons for this little addition to the family, but now I want yours. I want to know if you really love him and why. Do it quickly before I start playing with you again." She wiggled an eyebrow suggestively which made the younger girl blush furiously. Well, and Naruto-kun is. She blushed again just thinking about the boy. Anko smacked the girl on top of the head. "Quit stuttering and tell me, dumbass." "Owie." The Hyuga whined, rubbing the bump on her head. A look from Anko told her another would be coming soon if she didn't hurry. The girl sighed and took a deep breath. "Naruto-kun. I've always admired him. Ever since we met. It was that day you were chasing him to that playground. He sort of crashed into me and we talked for a minute or so before he left again." She poked her fingers together nervously. "I can't say I believe in love at first sight, but I fell for Naruto-kun just like he fell on me." She chuckled a little bit with a blush. I've watched him for a long time now, and he's always inspired me to be better myself. Just watching the training he goes through when he's by himself is amazing, and I can't help but admire him." The girl blushed again. "It helps that he's so sexy with those ears and tail." She turned an even deeper scarlet when she admitted that, which caused a wide grin to cross Anko's face. "So you love him then?" the snake mistress prodded. "Yes," Hinata nodded, "with every bit of my heart." "Good," Anko smiled. "That's all I needed to know." Hinata stared at Anko like she was crazy, which to be fair she kind of was. "That's all." "Yep, as long as you really love the Gaki, which from the sound and looks of it you really do. Just don't hurt him and we won't have any problems." Hinata nodded, dumbly wondering just what the hell she'd gotten herself into, only to realize that Anko was staring hungrily at the girl, who let out a little eep of fear, which made Anko look turn feral as she descended on her prey. The noises of which were heard all around the forest of death, making many of the native creatures look towards the tower and somehow or another being sentient enough to sweat drop at the noise which by all rights shouldn't be happening there. The next day, Training Ground 3. "Hello team." Kakashi hailed them. "You're late," came the annoyed reply. I smiled. "Sorry about that, a black cat crossed my path so I had to take another path." "You do realize you could just shunshin here, right?" Naruto deadpanned. "But then where's the fun of the journey?" came the irritating reply which made the three genin facepalm. "Okay, fuck the explanations, let's just train and maybe stay sane enough to do a mission afterwards." Naruto growled. "Oh, and just what kind of training do you want to do, Naruto?" Kakashi looked questioningly at the blonde with his one good eye, not forgetting that little boast about him training his teammates yesterday. Naruto stared blankly at him, then turned to look at Sakura and Sasuke. He frowned for a moment then snapped his fingers. "Got it. Yo Kakashi, you mind if I teach Sakura and Sasuke about chakra natures?" Kakashi pulled his Ika out and waved dismissively at him. "Sure, knock yourself out." Subtly though he kept a keen eye on the boy, wondering just what he was up to. Naruto sighed and turned to his teammates. "Alright you two, let's see what natures you both have." He pulled out a couple of pieces of paper and handed it to them. "Channel your chakra into those slips of paper." They stared at him questioningly. "Just do it," he sighed. They nodded and sent chakra into the paper. Sakura's paper soaked with a corner of the paper crumbled into dust. Sasuke's on the other hand crumpled with a large corner catching fire. Both dropped their slips in shock, much like Naruto had his first time. "Alright, looks like Sakura is a water element with an earth sub. Sasuke is a lightning element with a fire sub." Naruto nodded to himself, already coming up with a decent training exercise. "Alright, I got something." Naruto pulled out his water bottle and tossed it to the Pinkett. "Alright Sakura, for you, I want you to use your chakra to try and spin the water around in that bottle. Once you can get the water spinning at a decent speed, I'll show you the next step." He glanced at the Uchiha. "Sasuke, do you have a pair of kunai on you?" Sasuke nodded and produced the number of kunai. "Alright, now what I want you to do is hold those two kunai with the tips almost touching each other, and I want you to force chakra into one of the kunai. Then, try and arc your chakra from one blade tip to the other. If you both complete this exercise, you'll have already attained a small mastery over your main element. After you've gained a mastery over that element, I'll help you work with your secondary element." "Hey Naruto." "Yeah Sakura, how do you know all of this stuff?" "I've only read bits of elemental training, but," she looked at him, diverting her attention between him and the bottle of water. Already the water inside was slowly starting to spin. He snorted. "It's quite simple really." He held up a piece of chakra paper and pushed chakra into it, like it had several times before. It split in half twice and each corner went to one of the other 4 elements. On top of the foxy bits, I have a major affinity to all 5 major elements along with my natural bloodline element, ice. He flew through several hand signs and brought a hand to his mouth. Water release. Mizoripa. A small rush of water flew from his mouth and landed in a puddle nearby. Going through several other seals, he brought his hand down on the edge of the water. Ice release. Frozen wave. The water flash froze when his hand came into contact with it. Had anyone been standing in the puddle, they'd have been anchored to the ground. However, he smirked and went through a few more hand seals. Due to my affinity to the major elements and a few other things that I'm not gonna go into detail about, I can use other elemental bloodlines as well. Observe. Lava release. Lava globs. A wad of lava flew from Naruto's mouth and struck the ice, instantly causing it to hiss in protest before Naruto fired off another Mizoripa to harden the lava. "So it's true then," Kakashi mused, flicking a curious eye from his book to glance at the large chunk of rock in the puddle that used to be ice. "I guess what the Hokage told me is correct, but for him of all people to have a mastery of the 5 main elements and the ability to replicate other elemental bloodlines naturally without the blood of that bloodline in his veins. This team just got interesting, and if they can get their teamwork and skills up to a manageable degree, this team will be a force to be reckoned with." He noticed the looks of shock on Sakura and Sasuke's faces. Perhaps those two will learn something from Naruto after all. Sakura was watching Naruto's display with awe. Is this really Naruto? He was such a baka in the academy, always joking around, but this is just too much. She glanced at Sasuke, who had a similar look on his face as the one she now had. Sasuke for the most part was boiling with jealousy. To have that much power at your fingertips was unreal to him. Damn it, if only I had that kind of power, killing Itachi would be child's play. Maybe I can get the Dobi to teach me how he does it, then maybe. The Uchiha grit his teeth. The thought of bowing to someone lesser than him to gain power did not appeal to the proud Uchiha, even if Naruto was a decent guy and one of his few friends. The thought still sickened him. "Okay, any questions?" Naruto barked, snapping the two out of their thoughts. Sakura looked at the bottle she had in her hand. "Just what are you planning first to learn, Naruto?" Sakura asked curiously. "Well now, that's an interesting question," Naruto mused. "Toss me that bottle real quick." A toss and a pop later, the cap on the bottle was removed. "What I'm going to teach you too is what I myself discovered while learning how to control my elements. What most people don't know, or at least don't think about, is how to control elements in their base forms. Most people use hand signs to shape and form a jutsu, but to be perfectly honest, you could preform jutsu without a single hand sign. Sure, you can do that with regular jutsu as well if you practice enough with it, but I mean actual control over the elements around you." He held up the bottle. "Take for instance this water bottle." He spun the water in the bottle around a few times, infusing it with his chakra before taking a sip. With a sharp exhale, he spat the held water at a nearby tree, which impacted with a noticeable thud despite it being only a small amount of water. "That is what I'm talking about." He pointed to the dent made in the tree. "What I just did is something akin to water release. Teppadama, which creates a bullet of water from the mouth. While not nearly as strong as a teppadama, it's still useful." He walked over to Sasuke, getting inches from him. "What if an enemy has gotten in close, too close for you to dodge or form hand signs? Just have a loogie or a sip of water ready and you can hit the guy in his face with the equivalent to a strong punch. Hell, you hit him in the eye and you could blind one of them." The Uchiha shivered. One of the few things he feared was being blinded, as were all Dujutsu users in a way. For lightning, he continued, as a slight buzzing noise was heard. Looking down at Naruto's hand, there was a small bit of lightning chakra on the tips of his thumb and pinky. He reached out and touched Sasuke, which made the boy jump back in pain from the sudden jolt. I call that the taser. Shocking, isn't it? Naruto cackled. Sasuke just glared at him. Oi, don't give me that look. You're lucky I toned that down. That was only about 1/4 the power I can put into that thing. If I went full out with that tap, you'd be twitching on the ground right now. Besides, I can teach you how to use that ability if you'll stop brooding for a moment. Sasuke continued to glare at him, but couldn't help but agree with Naruto. Fine, I'll let him teach me something. If anything, I can use it against him later on, not to mention that last attack was badass. The Uchiha nodded. Naruto grinned. Alrighty then. A shiver went up Sasuke and Sakura's spine. A few hours later, Mission Hall. Iruka couldn't help but snicker at the sight before him. Naruto had a wide grin on his face. Beside him and completely soaked to the bone was a waterlogged Sakura. Next to her was a smoking Sasuke Uchiha. Every once in a while a stray spark would jump between the spaces in his hair. Behind the three of them was Kakashi, who had a wide-eye smile on his face, but if you looked closer you could tell he was silently laughing at two of his more unfortunate students. Ahem. The Jonin cleared his throat to keep himself from laughing. Team 7 here for their first D-rank mission. Iruka snapped to attention. Yes, your first D-rank mission. Let me see here. The scarred Chunin dug through a small mound of scrolls to one side of him and pulled out a single scroll. This should be a decent enough challenge for your team. He tossed the scroll to Kakashi, who opened it and began to read, only to pale dramatically and stare at the now grinning Chunin in front of him. You really don't like me, do you? He groaned, which only made Iruka's grin wider. Fine. Team 7. Mission to capture Tora, accepted. Asterisk 20 yards till in reach of the target, Naruto's voice over the radio whispered. Get closer and prepare to ambush, Kakashi whispered back. Roger, came the unanimous response. Moments later. Ahhhrg come here pussy. Naruto's voice roared out around the forest, followed shortly by a hair-raising hiss and the sound of claws tearing into flesh. Hey, he's a master of elements, not animals. Wrong story. Mission to capture Tora successful. Kakashi beamed, happy to have stayed the hell away from that demon spawn of Satan known as Tora. Casualties. He looked at Naruto, who was lying in a pool of his own blood, silently cursing whatever god spawned that fucking cat and ever so slowly moving his hands in a motion that suggested he was trying to strangle something. Point 5. Now you know why I hate people. Kyuubi replied happily, using whatever mental communication powers she had to annoy the crap out of Naruto. Shut it, woman. He groaned mentally, perfectly content to let his healing power take care of the bleeding. How the hell did I get scratches on my ass? Funny thing that, when you passed out with the cat in your arms, you landed on her and she proceeded to tear you a new asshole. Why is there the kanji for Tora scratched into my ass? Something to remember her by. Reet. 10 minutes and Deus Ex Machina healing later. Okay, that's last of the blood. Naruto whistled happily, that is until he noticed that the rest of his team had left. Sighing. Why do they do this to me? Maybe because you waterlogged one and turned the other into a lightning rod. Good job on that, by the way to spread misery to those around you. Yeah, whatever. Naruto stared up at the clock to check the time. I wonder why they left. There's still a good 3 to 4 hours left of the day. We could take at least one more mission in that time, couldn't we? Yeah, I don't get that about you humans. Even though there's plenty of time in the day, you still rarely do all of what you can. That kind of behavior is confusing. Well, we do tend to enjoy ourselves a lot. He nodded sagely. And the more time in the day we have to have fun, the better. After all, it's not like we can be in two places at once. Came an odd growl from Kyuubi in Naruto's mind. What's up? He was getting concerned when she didn't say anything for a good 30 seconds. Kid, what if you could be in two places at once to do more of these D-rank missions? The fox said finally, with a strange tone to its voice, something like curiosity but not Well, that could help a lot in making some quick saws. You're thinking of using shadow clones, aren't you? A light girly chuckle filled his head. Have I ever told you how much I appreciate you? He asked sincerely. No, but you should definitely start, my vanity commands it. The two shared a quick chuckle together. With the reveal that Kyuubi was less of a bitch than previously, thought it was much easier to get along with the woman, vixen, thing, fuck it. Yes, please do. She licked her lips sensually in Naruto's head, which made the blonde-haired teen all kinds of uncomfortable. Great, not only do I have a sadistic and horny wife, I have a sadistic and horny demon vixen in me head, fuck my life. Gladly, she replied perkily. Not you, damn it. The boy sighed in defeat, that is, until the light tapping of fingers drew his attention to Iruka, who was giving him an questioning look. Apparently the range of emotions passing over his face must have looked rather odd. Yeah, Iruka. What are you still doing here making faces, fool? The Chunin's head swelled comically to yell at our blonde-haired hero. Naruto just stared blankly, but in his head. Crikey, here we see the big head jutsu in its natural environment. What a beautiful and dangerous creature. I'm gonna poke it with a stick. Hiss asterisk, oh it's angry. Asterisk peef the hey asterisk. The Kyuubi snorted in amusement. Moments of possible insanity aside. Yo Iruka-sensei. Naruto hailed him, deflating the Chunin's jutsu down to less comical levels. Yes, Naruto. The scarred man looked curiously at the boy. Can I do missions on my own as long as they are right for my rank? Iruka scratched his head trying to remember the few rules of conduct for genin regarding taking mission, and as far as he knew, nothing in the books said a genin can't take a solo mission as long as it was within his level of skill. Sure, Naruto, I don't see why not. What about multiple missions? The Chunin nodded, a bit confused. Well then, Naruto smiled, could I see what missions you have? He was pointed to a pile of scrolls off to the side. You kind of backed up lately, Iruka-sensei. The boy's sweat dropped at the massive tower of scrolls sitting next to the table. Well, it's not usually this bad, but yes, there are quite a few missions that don't get completed sometimes, but that's just because we're a bit undermanned to handle all the requests that come in all the time. More like the genin teams are too lazy to take more than one mission, Naruto snorted, as he dug through the pile of scrolls. Let's see. Dog walking, nope. Painting fences, pulling weeds, nada. After about 10 minutes of sorting through all of the D ranks, which for lack of a better term could just be called chores, Naruto chose 5 of the ones that paid well and weren't obscenely difficult or time-consuming. He thumped the small pile down on the table, which brought a raised eyebrow from Iruka. You sure you want to take this many, Naruto? Naruto nodded. Yeah, Iruka-sensei, I'm sure. I need the money to pay for my own things, and doing D ranks is the easiest way to make money. But aren't you staying with Anko? The Chunin was curious. Everyone in the village knew that Naruto and Anko were staying together, but unlike most of Konoha, he knew that the two were actually married. Sarutobi had put a gag order on telling the populace that the two were actually husband and wife, leaving it to become a rumor, while Naruto had told Iruka after the man proved that he was a good guy and one of the few people that actually treated him as a person. But that's just it, Iruka. If anything happens and Anko can't work, it'll be up to me to handle paying for everything, and since I became an adult the moment I put this headband on, I can't just ignore my responsibility to her. Iruka would have laughed at how devoted the boy sounded towards the woman, but then he realized that this was something genuine from the boy. Anko was one of the few people who had seen him at his worst, without a mask to hide his true feelings. Her, along with Sarutobi, the Ichirakus and himself, were the only people to truly accept him. So this was a touchy subject for the blonde. I understand, he sighed. You know, you're a lot like me, Naruto. I had to take care of myself too, though I was a bit older than you when I started. He grinned and rubbed his nose in embarrassment. If you need any help or advice, you know who to ask. I can ask you about anything. Anything. Naruto got a devious smile on his face. Oh, then can I ask you all about that, then? Iruka turned beet red. He knew exactly what Naruto was referring to, but he wasn't gonna give the genin the satisfaction to know he was getting to the scarred man. Bah, get out of here, Anko's crazy is starting to rub off on you. Iruka huffed, marking the scrolls down and placing them on the desk in front of him. That's not all she's rubbing off. He cackled madly as he grabbed his scrolls and ran out the door, leaving a sputtering Iruka in his dust. Quote. Iruka facepalmed. Better make that face dest. Actually, better make that both at the same time. Ouch. Ah, that was refreshing. Naruto chuckled, as he put as much distance between himself and the mission hall. Hey, even I have to admit that was pretty devious of you, Kit. The look on his face was priceless. Oh ho. This is just the beginning. The prank king of Konoha has just gotten started. Muahahaha. As much as I enjoy your semi-decent into evil, why did you choose those 5 missions, Kit? They weren't anything that special when you looked at them, aside from the fact that they're easy and pay well. You seem to put a lot of thought into them. Naruto grabbed one of the scrolls and opened it. It was a part-time job at a bakery to handle the oven in the kitchen. What in this scroll looks like it would interest me? You could almost see the fox woman's eyebrows scrunch together as she examined the mission, then a smile spread across her face. This is training, isn't it? Every one of these missions has something to do with the 5 main elements. Got it in one. He grinned. Helping at a power plant will allow me to work on what lightning jutsu I have. Working the oven at the bakery, which just so happens to be a wood-burning oven, will help my fire jutsu. Picking up trash by the river will help with my water jutsu. Clearing a field of rocks for earth jutsu and helping repair the windmills around town will help with wind. I gotta hand it to ya, only you would think to turn chores into training. Naruto shook his head. Nah, this wasn't my idea. To be honest, these jobs were originally used for exactly what I'm using them for, training. Back in the old days they were used to promote teamwork and act as a form of training. Clearing a field of stones could easily be a physical exercise. Working the ovens would increase your tolerances to harsh temperatures like you'd find in wind country. Knowing how a power plant functions could give you valuable info on how to sabotage one in an enemy village, thus causing panic and confusion, along with giving an invading squad a much-needed advantage by allowing them to do their mission under cover of complete darkness. So UCD ranks, when used properly, are invaluable to a shinobi in training. And just who came up with this method of training? Naruto cracked a grin. The first Hokage, of course. How nice. The fox replied blandly. The man who first imprisoned me and his wife is also the one who'd give my newest container a great way to train in using powers indirectly gained from me. Naruto chuckled. The irony of the situation was not lost on me either. Whatever. Let's just get this over with. I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable with you leaving Hinata with Anko. There was clear agitation in her voice. Concerned. Really? The raised brow showed his confusion. Just why would the fox care about someone other than itself? Unlike you, I know exactly what she is capable of, not to mention that Hyuga girl is going to be your mate, Kit, and by extension, mine, and I don't want that snake woman violating her beyond what is acceptable, at least until you can get a hold of her. A barely controlled feeling of revulsion ran down Naruto's spine. There are levels of acceptable violation. Do I want to know? There are 3, and until you are married to her, no. Okay then. As he proceeded to forget that conversation ever happened. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as well as checking out the author on fanfiction.net.